Of course, Donald Trump very recently said that he was not happy that a final decision on whether he has not made a final decision on whether to launch strikes on Iran. But now, as the developments has happened and now the details are coming in, we see that the threats were not hollow after all. And to discuss more, we are also being joined by Mr. Yusuf. He's joining us on the phone line. So, how do you assess the situation? Where do you expect it to go from here?
Well, of course, memories of the last June strikes against Iran are being revived right now, but it is larger, of course, in scale. And this time around, it's a missile attack. We've been hearing reports that it's a joint American-Israeli missile attack targeting several key facilities inside Iran. We woke up to ear-splitting sounds of explosions around 9:30 a.m. local time here in Iran, in the capital, Tehran. And of course, we kept hearing reports coming from multiple cities close to Tehran, like the city of Karaj. But from the locations that are being reported, the target could be military facilities and installations, because the majority of the military installations, including the missile production facilities like Parchin, are located in the eastern and northeastern parts of Tehran. And we've been hearing that those locations and those areas are being the target of an attack. So most likely, we're not talking for sure for now, but most likely military installations, including Iran's ballistic missile production lines, are being a target. But we're also hearing reports that there have been multiple targeted assassinations. Some of the targets, and I just received a report suggesting that the residence of Iran's president, Mr. Pezeshkian, has also been a target among the targets. And Israeli sources are reporting that 30 targets across Iran, including some intelligence sites, are being targeted by this ongoing missile attack. And we keep hearing very, very ear-splitting sounds of explosions around us. And where I'm reporting from is the northwestern part of the capital, Tehran, and an area called Chitgar, which is located there. It houses some of the Iranian military facilities. It has also been a target of the attack. So it remains to be seen how Iran will react or will just strike back.
Absolutely. And as you've just mentioned, about 30 targets across Iran have been struck so far, including the Iranian president's residence and an intelligence headquarters, according to Israeli reports. Now, of course, we'll have to see how Iran responds to these attacks. In your assessment, how do you think the response is going to be manifested at this point?
Well, of course, Iran time and again said, following the June attack, that it is now more prepared, meaning the reaction time, the response time has been reduced from 24 hours back in June to now within hours, based on comments by different Iranian military officials. Right now, if those comments are true, if those claims are true, we have to wait for the upcoming hours for an Iranian response. And Iran made it clear that any attack on its soil would be met with a harsh response, and the first target would be Israel. Iranian officials, just yesterday, I talked to a very high-profile Iranian ex-IRGC commander, and he told me that Israel would be the first target, and then if the United States bases the region contribute to those strikes, to any strike against Iran, then the U.S. bases in the region would be also a legitimate target. So we have to wait and see how serious these comments are. And now this is a litmus test for an Iranian military capability and defense power.
Right, Mr. Jalali, and U.S. Embassy in Qatar has implemented a shelter-in-place for all personnel. This is after the Israeli strikes on Iran. And the U.S. Embassy in Qatar implemented a shelter-in-place for all personnel, recommending that all of its citizens should do the same until further notice. And the move, of course, comes after Israel launched an attack against Iran on Saturday. And as per reports, the United States, this is according to United States official, the U.S. is carrying out joint strikes with Israel. And of course, the attacks are preceded by a month-long U.S. military buildup that followed President Trump's pledge to come to the aid of protesters who rocked the regime at the beginning of January. Well, this is also the second time in 8 months and risking a wider regional conflict in one of the most economically sensitive parts of the world. Now, Mr. Jalali, what kind of an impact do you think it will have on the wider regional, geopolitical dynamics right now?
Well, of course, we have to wait for an Iranian response. But if Iran lives up to its promises or its of course, threats it has already made in the past. U.S. bases in the region would be a target. The U.S. vessels, including carriers, strike group, those vessels and military assets would be also a legitimate target. And of course, the Strait of Hormuz would be closed. These are among the threats made earlier by Iran, vowing a harsh response in the face of any incoming attack by the U.S. or by Israel. Now, there has been a joint attack by these two countries. And this means that Iran is now preparing to live up to these threats, of course, it has made in the past. So if these threats are being fulfilled, would be fulfilled, of course, then we have to see oil prices skyrocket. We have to see the Strait of Hormuz being closed, disrupting shipment along this strategic oil choke point, of course, a transit choke point, through which more than 20% of the global energy shipment passes. So this would create not just regional impacts or repercussions, but also global repercussions for the global economy.
Right, Mr. Jalali, and Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has been moved to a secure location after the attacks. And of course, meanwhile, the Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz said the preemptive strike was to remove threats against the state of Israel. Well, last June as well, when Israel launched an attack on Iran leading to the 12-day war, the U.S. eventually joined Israel in the conflict. And now we're also seeing this joint attack this time as well. Now, do you think it's going to shift the red lines, and in what ways are the red lines will be shifted in terms of the negotiations, because we know that either side is not willing to back down on, the core demands, but still remain a point of contention?
Well, of course, I don't think that this is now a time for negotiations, because if we remember what happened back in June, a similar pattern took place, a similar pattern. Strikes came mid-talks, and now the same pattern is being repeated. But of course, at that time, if you remember, Iran was negotiating with the United States. Then Israel jumped in and attacked Iran mid-talks. Now it is the United States itself that is joining the strikes. Back then, the United States was launched the last strikes that targeted 3 nuclear facilities, but now it is joining the Israelis on the first day of this escalation. So I don't think that now there's ground or area or potential for the continuation of the discussions. But of course, when everybody was hopeful for a diplomatic breakthrough, the attacks came. And a couple of hours ago, we heard it from al-Busayri, the Omani foreign minister. His comments gave some hopes for a diplomatic achievement, but then the strikes came. And I think Donald Trump has been trying to shock Iran or surprise Iran, making them hopeful of diplomatic achievement, but then striking Iran halfway through. And this is being implemented right now. But Iran has time and again said that it is not going to be surprised this time around. And fingers have been on trigger since day one of the discussions that was put by Iran's foreign minister and other officials, including military officials, saying that they're expecting the same pattern to take place once again this time around too. And as I said, we have to wait for an Iranian response. If the Iranian response would be so harsh, the same way as it was put by Iranian officials, then we have to expect a very serious regional conflagration, not to mention the Iranian proxies, the Iranian militias, the Iranian-backed militias in the region. They've also been warning that they would jump on the bandwagon and strike back in favor of Iran, meaning that the Strait of Bab el-Mandeb close to Yemen, the Red Sea shipment, and also some of the U.S. bases in Iraq or U.S. assets in Iraq might come under an attack by the Iraqi militias. So this means this is a complete recipe for a regional conflagration.
Right, Mr. Jalali, we hear you, and just to recap, about 30 targets across Iran have been struck so far, and these include the Iranian president's residence as well, and an intelligence headquarters, and also from what we understand, Pezeshkian's residence was set to be a target, and the Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has been moved to a secure location. Now, as you've just mentioned, it is a repeat of a pattern that we have seen before. Do you think perhaps this repeat in pattern will also be followed by a repeat in the outcome?
Oh, sorry, would you please go again?
Mr. Jalali, I just wanted to understand you've mentioned that we've seen a repeated pattern. How the attack has been carried out, it's quite similar to what we saw in June. Now, do you think it will also be followed by a similar outcome perhaps this time?
Like a ceasefire after 12 days of conflict? Of course, we're not sure. We cannot predict what would happen. But we can only talk about the level of the destruction that could be made. This time it's very serious. The last time we didn't hear such massive attacks, or we didn't hear sounds of explosions this close to our residence back then. But now we're hearing them coming very close, meaning many areas are being the target, and maybe those 30 locations are just an underestimation or understatement, so to speak, of the level of the attack. It is very huge, and let's not forget that in the previous round of those attacks on Iran back in June last year, the Iranian state broadcaster remained tight-lipped and did not mention the strikes not after 24 hours, meaning they had been calculating the response maybe, or keeping some things under wraps. But now they were the first to break this news. And this shows that it is very serious this time around. But of course, we cannot predict the future. We cannot predict how this would unfold. But based, again, we have to just resort to comments by Iran. Iran
Absolutely,
has
Mr.
given
Jalali.
a picture.
Right, and the Israeli strikes have happened amid diplomatic efforts between US and Iranian officials for a deal to curb Iran's nuclear program and avert a war. And negotiations were expected to continue next week as well. But now Iran has, as we've seen, it has made concessions in the talks, although the US President Trump, who had previously threatened to attack Iran to put pressure on its leaders to accept a deal, said yesterday that he was not thrilled with the way the discussions were going. And now it's been preceded by this attack that we've seen today. It's a joint attack by US and Israel. Now, where do you think how do you think the conversation is going to go from here? Because we understand that the diplomatic, conversations are off the table for now. So what could be the next step to see the logical conclusion to this now?
Iran has made it clear that if the United States wants to repeat the same pattern, then this means a full-scale war against Iran. And even if the attack by the U.S. would be limited and would be contained and measured, then Iran would declare it or regard it as a full-scale war against its soil. So we cannot expect the talks to continue because Iran has proven in the past that it is not willing to talk under pressure. It is against its national dignity. It is against its sovereignty to talk while the sword is hanging overhead. So we cannot expect the talks to continue, at least based on the behavior of Iran's foreign policy in the past.
Right, and the Israeli army has meanwhile declared a state of emergency and asked citizens to stay close to shelters. And we understand that this is a campaign that Israel has launched in line with its stated policy that Iran poses a threat to Israel's safety, as was the case the last time before the strikes as well. And again, this time they've called it a preemptive strike. Now, do you think there were logical grounds for this to be called a preemptive strike, and were there legitimate threats for, such a move by Israel and the United States this time?